Today we're talking about Jada and Will Smith and their 7-year separation, where they were playing the part in public but were living a double life in private. Or on the one side we got, keep my wife's name out of your mouth, but on the other, wife who? Alright, hi and welcome back to Blunt Script. I'm your host, Karina Saint-Just, and this is my wonderful husband, Ezra Saint-Just. And our goal is to share with you uncensored truth about challenging relationship and life questions. Before we do go on, please click that like button so that it can help out our algorithm. And also share, follow, and subscribe for more wholesome content like this. Alright, so to start off, I have a riddle for you.
Okay.
Are you ready for this? It is called the wolf, chicken, and grain riddle. I'm sure you might have heard it before, but this is how it goes, right? A farmer is traveling with a wolf, a chicken, and a bag of grain and comes to a river that they need to cross. The boat only has room for the farmer and one other. However, the farmer can't leave the wolf alone with the chicken, and he can't leave the chicken alone with the grain. So how can he get them all across the river safely?
He has room for one?
He only has room for one on the boat with him.
Where did he take the grain? Because where do you say he was in a boat, right?
Yes.
When he's trying to cross the river.
Yes.
He takes the grain, so the chicken will follow the grain. That's his food supply, and the wolf wants to eat the chicken.
So the chicken's gonna swim?
So, well, the chicken will come on the boat to get the grain.
But there's no space.
Oh, there's no space for them all?
No.
Okay.
So there's only space for the farmer and one more thing, whether it's the grain, whether it's the wolf, or whether it's the chicken. But he can't leave the wolf with the chicken, and he can't leave the chicken with the grain because the chicken's going to eat the grain.
Yeah.
And the wolf the chicken.
And he needs to bring everyone on?
He needs to bring everyone to the other side. So he can come back. But how does he do it?
Oh, he can come back?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant in one go.
How does he do it?
Okay, so in order to do it, then you first take the chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Then afterwards, you take the
Okay, so he leaves the chicken on the other side and comes back with the boat.
Yeah.
So what does he do now?
Well, you take the grain, then you come back for the wolf.
So he takes the grain and leaves it with the chicken. You can't leave it with the chicken because it's going to eat it.
Well, you keep the bag closed.
It's still going to eat it.
Yeah, I was going to eat it. The bag is closed.
You're on the right track.
Yeah.
This is what he has to do, right? He takes the chicken across.
Yeah.
Then comes back by himself. Then takes the wolf, drives him across, but brings the chicken back with him. So the wolf is on the other side.
Yeah.
Then leaves the chicken, but takes the grain and brings it on the other side.
Yeah.
So now the wolf and the grain is on one side, and he comes back for the chicken, and then brings it back, and then he's on his way.
That's too much work.
Well, man's got to protect his stuff, you know? So whether it's much work or not, you got to do what you got to do.
Bag so the chicken don't enter it.
I mean, if you got a really good bag, it's a viable answer. All right. So let's just talk about the divorce that was not on paper. Recently, I saw a clip that I'm sure many of you as well have seen about Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith's divorce or separation, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that because they've been married for 23 years and they've been separated since 2016, and they've been an inspirational couple by many. They've been looked up to as an inspirational couple by many fans, and many people have wanted to be them as a couple. But it turns out it was all a lie. So let's actually watch that clip together.
There are so many surprising things in the book, but the thing that surprised me the most, that I actually had to reread it because I said, is this true?
Right.
Was that in 2016, you and Will decided that you were going to live completely separate lives.
Yes.
It was not a divorce on paper,
right,
but it was a divorce. So from the year 2016, which is 7 years ago now,
yes,
y'all have been apart.
Yeah.
But in
Okay. So the first thing I actually want to ask is Jada said, I made a promise to never, that we will never have a reason to divorce and that we will work through whatever. And I just haven't been able to break that promise, right? But is being divorced physically but not on paper still breaking your promise? I mean, how does that justify it?
Yeah. So being divorced physically but not on paper. I mean, divorce is divorce in terms of how you separate from your partner. I think that with Jada and Will, right? You know, being able to live a life where as if you were to be single individuals and being able to sleep out with other people and all those other things that automatically, forfeits a marriage union, what a marriage union should be. So definitely it makes no sense to still be married and live a life of what you term as adultery. There's no more monogamy in there anymore. The marriage union is basically, there's no sacredness in that marriage union anymore, and it's actually worse. It's actually worse to sort of remain married, continue to live a very licentious life, and just maintain married in that aspect is actually worse than actually getting a divorce.
I find it a little ironic because she literally said at the beginning of the interview that they are divorced. And she said, yes, we're divorced. But then she says, I haven't been able to break that promise of being divorced.
Yeah.
So I wonder what is going on in her
yeah.
mind where she acknowledges that they're divorced. Literally.
Maybe separate. Maybe she's referring to like separation. Maybe like they're separated.
No, but those were the exact words
Yeah,
used.
but she said not on paper. So I'm not sure what that defines as when she said we're divorced, but just not on paper.
I wonder what she's trying to grasp at, because when you're already fully divorced, I mean, you made a promise, right, to work through whatever, but you guys have stopped working through whatever. So just because you're not doing it on paper, you're still sleeping around with other people, and you're living life as if you're divorced. So I'm just a little bit confused by this whole thing. But aside from that, I think we can see a great lesson, I would say, in this whole story, right? Because Jada and Will Smith, they're practically frauds. Wouldn't you say so?
In what sense?
Because we'll never know what really truly happened in their relationship, but the fact that they chose to lie about it for 7 whole years to the whole world is just simply put a class act worthy of Will Smith's career. Basically, it just goes on to show everything you see on social media about relationship or about someone. Even in public, everything you see about a person may not be what actually happens in private.
Yeah, I say in one sense too, because what I realize online is that a lot of people also take on additional aspects and begin to like develop even more fraudulent lies about someone's situation, what's happening, and paint someone in a very bad light. So just looking at the facts, like Jada said, for from 2016, that's like till 2023, that's like 7 years. They've sort of been apart, and just in the front of the media and everywhere else, they've been acting as if they were a married couple. Of course, that's a false witness that they're bearing. It's a lie in that sense. And I think if Jada or Will happen to see this podcast, there's still hope for you to make a change. And I think just understanding that as well, because how often do many individuals of us in our marriages put on a friend, right? And it may not be as a severe, lie as Jada and Will, but I could imagine like, a lot of individuals who may be having a very terrible marriage, but still act as if, hey, our marriage is okay, our marriage is fine. So we look down upon one couple, but then we don't recognize, our what we're doing and in our life as well. So, but definitely it's very deceptive what we saw, in terms of what Jada self said. And I can only speak if someone says something, I know like, hey, it's coming from their mouth. That's what they said at least. She could be lying about many things too. It's like, you can't really trust. You don't know what to trust anymore because the
That's
thing
true.
that she says is like, okay, well, is that another act in the movie that she's playing out with Will? You know, is that another like lie? You know, like what is true, what isn't, right? Is that memoir that she have? Is that even like accurate? You know, or is she just, you know, like you just really don't know anymore. But definitely,
Mm.
it's very deceptive. You know, what was done, and it's a lesson for us all. You know, a lesson for us all to be able to consider that as well. You know, so we don't fall into that same deception.
And it's interesting what you also commented earlier because marriage is a very sacred thing, right? And no matter how many fancy cars or how many maids you have working for you or the square footage of your house, um, every single marriage has problems and every single marriage has issues that need to be worked through, right?
Yeah.
So I really like that you also touched up on that part because I feel like many times, especially with people, other people, we tend to judge really quick too, and we tend to um, sometimes even idolize. It can be both. We either judge or idolize.
Yeah.
And it's because also we try and see maybe something's not working out in our own family, or maybe we see something that's not right, but instead of maybe even praying for that person or trying to talk to that person, majority of the time we just talk about it, right, in a bad front.
Yeah. So and there's lots of gossip going around as well, you know. So just being cautious of that, right? Because a lot of times what happens now is when we begin to gossip about someone else, especially saying things that that is not even factual, right? We begin to even see those things in our lives, in our marriages, and we begin to develop the same things that we actually speak about, right? So it's very important to be cautious of that. But marriage definitely is a sacred thing, and what we see going on there between the two is definitely something that isn't what the Bible prescribed. I mean, God Himself was the one who instituted marriage, right? So it makes sense that
Yes.
if I need to know how to conduct a marriage, I need to go to the Lord. And
Right.
the Bible basically condone a monogamous type of marriage life.
Mm.
So if a marital life includes individuals sleeping out with others, then we know that that is something that is not based upon what a marriage intends to be. It intends to be, and in fact, it brings a lot of unhappiness. And that is why as much as Jada could probably search for happiness through many other individuals, she'll never get happiness. She wouldn't get it through any young boy
Mm.
or whatever the case might be. I believe that as we look towards the Lord, right, having the Lord as the center of a marriage, that is what could bring joy. That is what could bring happiness. Like you said, you can have big homes, you can have a very
Yeah.
small home, and I'm telling you, like sometimes people think, oh man, if I had more money, we'll have a better marriage, and if we have a better marriage, we can have a better life. But then you can have very little money and have a miserable marriage. You can have
Very true.
a whole lot of money and
It'll still
have
be very
also
miserable.
miserable
Mm.
marriage, right? So the amount of money you have doesn't equal how good of a marriage that you have. I believe
That's
what
right.
equals of how good of a marriage you have is how much who we have at the center of our marriage. I think that's what's
Mm.
important, and of course,
For
none other
sure.
than God Himself should be the
Yes.
center of any marriage to make it work.
Yes. I also just want to talk again about this a little bit because I find it very disturbing how much people idolize others. Because, oh, like people say, oh, I wish I had their talent, or I wish I had the cars like this person had, or they're just so perfect. I want to be just like them. And I think many people have idolized Jada and Will Smith and their relationship, especially as well, and have wanted to be like them. But in all honesty, these are real people with real problems. And I mean, they put on the best front for the world, right? But this is Hollywood. Practically the whole Hollywood is fraudulent. This is what Hollywood is. It's acting, right? It's putting on an act. It's putting on a show for the rest of the world. So, it's important to take the lesson from this that we can't idolize people. We can't look up to people. We can't single people out and want to be like someone else so bad because we never know what they're going through. I'm sure all the people who said, "Oh, I want to be just like Jada and Will Smith. I want to have a relationship just like them," now are like, maybe I should take my words back, right? So we have to be really careful there as well who we idolize and if we shouldn't idolize at all actually. But what's very interesting too is that when Jada cheated on Will, you kind of touched up on this with her son's friend August. That was during their separation, right? And so they don't consider it as cheating. She said in an interview that she doesn't consider it as cheating, but technically, yes, it is cheating because you're still married and you still have that union. And even if the mainstream media and Hollywood nowadays is trying to make us feel like, just being progressive and having an open marriage is a sign of how much you trust each other and how strong your bond truly is, I think that that's garbage, because there's nothing more, there's nothing that shows more how bad your marriage is and how much you're losing grasp over your marriage than by putting a band-aid and patching it over and saying, oh, we're just going to start seeing other people because we trust each other so much and we love each other so much that this isn't going to affect us, that we can trust each other with other people as well. And then you go and seek comfort and seek what you're not getting from somewhere else, and then at the end of the day, come back to your reality, which you don't really want to face, right? So I think it's very disturbing, to be honestly, as well, that we are constantly mind washed, right, on television and everywhere else to believe that having an open marriage or things like that is totally fine. But you can see how it hurts people, and not just that, it completely ruins your marriage and your relationship.
Yeah.
All right. Also, I don't know if you remember that Jada said previously in the interview that she invited Will Smith at her Red Table Talk show on Facebook. She also said that she doesn't see her cheating on him as a transgression. And I wonder if after all of that and after just everything that has happened, I just wonder how much is Will's manhood affected. Do you know what I mean? Because if you think about it, like she's just embarrassed him in public all the time, and I just feel like Jada has really started pulling on the reins, and she started taking the control in the relationship because she doesn't want to break her promise, right? She doesn't want to break her promise of divorce. So I mean, I don't know for sure, but from what I see, this is what it is, that they just don't want to separate because she doesn't want to break her promise of never having a reason to divorce. And also how she's just controlling a little bit the marriage through everything, through what she's saying. It just sounds to me like she's the one that's controlling the marriage. And especially since she invited Will Smith and he agreed to sit there and listen to her talk about how her cheating on him is not, she doesn't believe it's a transgression, and talking about his wife cheating on him. I just feel like there's not much left of Will Smith as before. I mean, I don't know that much about him, but I feel like him not having his manhood has definitely played a big role in him not being the same person as before. And we can also see the consequences of today's modern women, right? Women wearing the pants in a relationship, and what that does for someone, because marriage is a very sacred thing, and it's a union of two people becoming one under God. And we yet again see in Hollywood that sacredness is nowhere to be found, because really Hollywood is under not God but under Satan. And we see especially the perils of going against Bible principles, and how even if it shows on a front of being perfect and being a certain kind of way and being attractive or being advantageous, we can see that it really destroys lives and it ruins life. And the front that it puts on is not a real front. And people, I think, fall into that lie. You know, they watch movies, they watch shows, and they see certain things being done, and they feel like, oh, I should do the same thing because these people do it and they're happy, and look at the relationship that they have. And then they come back home and they do the same thing, and they realize that it's really not all that it's shown to be, and their lives turn out to be far from what they expected it to be. But do you have anything to add on to that?
In which aspect? Which aspect?
I mean, especially about Hollywood and how I think there's a big agenda of trying to take away the manhood of a man.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's what is happening a lot. And we see this a lot, especially as well with feminism, right? Where the woman is wearing the pants in a relationship and where just everything is kind of under the control of the roles are all mixed up constantly. And we can see that being pushed a lot in on mainstream media and also in all the shows that are being shown basically. This is what's being pushed, right?
Yeah. I mean, for Will, it's a little strange because it's in a lot of the media, the friends and so forth. He's still given the appearance of support for whatever like Jada is doing. So in terms of like let's say how much he's affected his manhood and everything else, I'm sort of it's sort of like very questionable. Like everything because you'll see him right at the back with Jada receiving a memoir and showing his support, apparently writing a letter for support, and you'll see all those things, and you sort of question and wonder like, is that all part of a play, right? I'm not 100% sure, so I can't really judge from really what is on the outside like that, especially that particular couple. You just don't really know, like this is a family of actors,
Yes.
from the oldest to the youngest, they all into the acting game. I mean, they made money off sharing this entire story to the world, and they made money off lying about many aspects of their story and so forth, and so it's very hard, like to really determine like how things have really impacted Will Smith, but if a lot of it is what it is, then definitely to be able to publicly mention so many things and belittling almost the you know your husband in that sense. I see it as something that really hits against a man's core, the values and who he is, if that's the case. So yeah.
You said something earlier that was so very interesting to me about how it could be like a theory. I guess it's not what it is. I'm not saying, but it almost seems like it could be a possibility that they agreed on it beforehand and they said, "Hey, this is what we're gonna act out, and this is what we're gonna do, so that um, just so that they can get more money out of it." I don't know, but it almost seems like it's an act that they have written beforehand and are not acting out for one reason or another. You know,
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and yeah, so I guess we have several lessons to learn here from the Bible as well, right? From their story, because I think we shouldn't just talk about somebody to talk about somebody, but it's either to help them out or to learn lessons from their story. And I think a few very precious lessons we can take out from Jada and Will Smith's story is that one, the Lord specifically tells us not to idolize, right? We can get kind of into dangerous ground if we start idolizing, because I've seen many, I've heard of many who have literally idolized Jada and Will Smith relationship so much, and only God is perfect, really, and He can be our only example. So we shouldn't look up to other people and put them on a pedestal so much, because we're all human and we all fail and we all do things wrong, right?
Mm.
What's a second lesson you think we can learn from this story?
From the entire experience, um, I'd say like marriage is a sacred thing. It's not something that we should take lightly, and you know, it's even when it comes to like it's also something I appreciate from Jada, and that in the sense of her saying like she promised that they would never separate. That's a good thing. I'll mention that. It's a good thing to have a mindset of not wanting to separate.
Yeah.
Of course, that is tainted and it's bad when you don't separate, but then you're still living a very adulterous life. That's when it doesn't make any sense anymore. But I think the principle that Jada left is a powerful one in that sense of um, wanting to stay together, because again, God's original intention is really not for us to enter into divorces, and all of those things. He really wants us to stay together. That's the ultimate goal. And in Matthew chapter 19 verse 8, when it speaks about divorce in the Bible, it says, Moses, because of the hardness of the hearts of those individuals, suffered them to put their wives away. But then in the beginning, it was not so. So essentially, God is saying, you know what? In the beginning, like, there was, I never intended divorce to actually happen. However, of course, we know there is a pretext for divorce. If someone engages in adultery biblically, then someone is free to actually remarry, right? So that's the only pretext for like divorce in the Bible is someone is basically committing adultery. So really and truly, Will Smith is actually free to remarry if he really wants, and so forth. However, it's definitely a powerful lesson, to be able to stick together irrespective, but of course without the taintedness of an adulterous life.
And the third lesson we can learn from that as well is that everyone has their role in marriage, right? Especially the woman was given as a helpmeet to her husband, and she was asked specifically to submit to the husband as he submits unto God. So I think we can look kind of from the point of view of from a workplace setting, right? If I have my role in my job, and but I slowly start to try and boss around the manager and the other workers around me as well. Over time, slowly that's going to create havoc in the workplace. And same thing goes for the marriage as well. You cannot be a wife and a husband to your husband in a marriage, and vice versa. So it's important that everybody understands their roles and keep to their roles as God has given us to keep them as well. All right, well, that's a wrap for today. My question for y'all is, what makes a marriage work even through the struggles that a couple may face? Please leave your comments down below. We're excited to hear them, all the advice that you guys have to give, and what you think will truly work for a marriage. And please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share. All right, till next time. Toodles.